Hi, it's Charlie McAvoy from the Boston Bruins.
Charlie McAvoy wins it in overtime.
Watch as we take on the Tampa Bay Lightning in the 2026 NHL Stadium Series in Tampa. Catch all the action on Sunday, February 1st on ESPN. Visit NHL.com/Stadium Series for tickets and more information. That's NHL.com/Stadium Series. See you February 1st. The NHL Stadium Series is coming to the Sunshine State.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Oh, it's such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some from my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Shop up to 40% off site-wide, plus an extra 10% off every order and a free professional measure happening right now at Blinds.com.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Wynn and welcome to However podcast. And because the transfer window is about to close and we enjoyed doing this so much when we did it back in November, we decided to do something a little bit different today and do a transfer window special edition of Room 101. Now, if you haven't seen the TV show, that was presented by Frank Skinner in recent years, and some of you might remember the ones presented by Paul Merton and Nick Hancock back in the 90s. This was a show where guests put forward their pet hate in the hope that they were consigned to Room 101. And today, the lads are putting forward their specific transfer window pet hates. And Room 101, by the way, for anyone who is interested, was a torture room from George Orwell's 1984 that contained the worst thing in the world. So the lads will have to persuade me that their transfer window pet hates deserve to be banished forever. So let's introduce who we have with us today, who will get their persuasive juices flowing to make the world of football transfers a much better place for everyone. And first up, we have Gavin Henderson. Hello, Gav.
Hello, mate. I'm looking forward to this, another edition of this. And I'm looking forward to moaning a bit because there are a lot of things about the transfer window that I absolutely detest. So looking forward to this one.
Well, that's it. There's no the British public love more than a good moan, is the Gav.
Well, that's it, isn't it? You know, that's what we're famous for. Might as well live up to the moniker. Why not?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think just to start off, Gav, because if it all works out as the way we plan, this should be our 365th episode, which, considering we started at the end of last March, is a little bit of an achievement.
Yeah, we've stuck it out. We started this thing out, didn't we? And thought, well, we'll just record when we can be asked. You know, might be weekly, we might do maybe a couple of episodes a week, and then very quickly spiraled into becoming a daily thing, which we've completely committed to, and we live and breathe it now. So yeah, a little bit mad, isn't it? But also just on the theme of 365, we did of course once release a book called SAFC 365. So It's a number synonymous with us, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. We didn't set out that way. We thought first week, a couple of weeks or whatever. And I think a lot of people in chats and things were saying, you'll never keep that up. But here we are. And we've actually done 365 episodes in much less than a year. So there you go. On most game days, we put 2 pods out. I think it's
called being sad, Chris. That's what it is.
That's it.
Sad old men.
we need better hobbies, clearly. But just very quickly, Room 101, Gav, because I'm not sure you were on the ones we did back in November. But can you remember the TV show?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I even remember the ones when Paul Merton was the host that I kind of think of when I think of Room 101. And didn't they reboot it sort of later on, and it was Frank Skinner. So, But yeah, it was kind of part of my sort of growing up and staying up late to watch telly when BBC Two used to have all the comedy on it. Times have changed, haven't they? But yeah, no, I did. I love that show.
Yeah.
I think it's the type of thing though. I mean, we are shamelessly stealing the idea, right?
As we always do.
As we do, because we've not got an original bone in our bodies. But it's the type of thing that never ages, really, because there's always new things to whinge about. So we're keeping it alive. Maybe, you never know. There could be somebody from a TV company who listens to this and goes, "No, we should bring that back again. I think it's time. Dust it off, get it back out."
Yeah.
People love it.
A football 101, maybe. You never know. Although we'll have done them all, though. That's the thing.
Tom White listens to these shows, so there you go. He can pitch that to the gaffers at Sky, see if they fancy it. Maybe better than that box thing they're doing at the minute on YouTube.
Well, it's all for the kids now, isn't it?
Yeah,
But that's not the first time I'll sound old today. But next up, speaking of not being old, we've got Johnny Hawley with us. Hello, Johnny.
Yes, hello. I thought you missed a bit of a trick. You could have segued to us with, and speaking of sad men who have nothing better to do than podcast all day, every day.
I wouldn't do that to you, Johnny.
Not today, you wouldn't, because you need me to be the beacon of hope for all of us, that we can beat Gav in an argument and we can get his selections chucked in the bin. So I'm carrying the hopes of a nation here.
Well, I'll keep that idea in my back pocket as we go along anyway. But as we said with the previous one in November, you did do that one, Johnny, with Andrew, who we might mention along the way. But does that give you a bit of advantage because you've done this before?
Well, in theory it does, but, pressure does funny things to people, doesn't it? And when you're against an intellectual titan, the way that I am today, I've got to have all my wits about us. I still get the odd tweet or someone in one of the group chats messaging us every once in a while about lineup graphics being in the wrong order for positions. So at least that one struck a chord, if nothing else.
I wonder if Andrew took some stick for his choice of shit houses at the match.
Well, between that and then one of the other pods we did the other week where we were bemoaning the early leavers, I think between me and Andrew, we're starting to alienate quite large sections of the fan base. So we might not make it to the next 365th edition of the podcast.
You just see at the stadium, just Andrew sitting in the middle of a load of empty seats. Nobody wants to to sit next to him. But I was going to ask, because we did some general ones last time, Johnny, but was it more difficult this time because it was specific to the transfer window?
Yes and no. One or two of them came to us straight away, but then I was trying, because with it being about transfer windows and not just like about transfers themselves, if you know what I mean, I try to be a bit more picky to try and keep that theme in mind. So once you boil it down, there's not that many aspects to a transfer window, but we've still managed to find plenty to complain about. Don't you worry.
Yeah. And just before we get going, Gav, was there any that just missed out on your list?
If I'd thought long and hard about it, then probably could have came up with about 10. But these ones came immediately to mind, to be honest. I could have even branched out from the ones that I picked, but there is quite a lot about this. Maybe Jim White. I just think he's a dick. Sorry, TalkSport, if you're listening, but he's kind of, he's because he's not on Sky anymore. He's moved over. They're still doing it with him though. So I think on deadline day, he's doing like his normal show, and then they're bringing him back on the night time to do the transfer show.
Wow. Right.
But I just kind of get away with Jim White. I actually, Simon Jordan, the guy he does the show with, he's probably my guilty pleasure. I actually quite like listening to him. There's something about him which I just quite like. Even though we're very different types of people. But Jim White, I just kind of get away with him. And he's become synonymous with deadline day. Actually, if I was going to pick anything, probably would be the fact that they've become a little bit more stale and PC over the years. I preferred it when people were getting purple dildos in their ears and things like that. It was much better crack, wasn't it? Or Harry Redknapp hanging out of a car window and things like that. Like, it's not as fun as it used to be deadline day. So, bring back the purple dildo.
Oh, yeah. Got that Harry Redknapp hanging out of his window. I always remember there was on the early days of social media, there was an hashtag Ask Harry. Get your questions into Harry Redknapp, and one of them was hashtag Ask Harry. It said, what was it? It said, is it true if I drew if I drew a face on my testicles and hung them out of my car window, I'd be interviewed by Sky Sports.
As long as you don't call him a wheeler dealer, he'll be all right.
Yeah, and the Ask Harry questions went on like that. But anyway, let's crack on with it, because we'll have 3 rounds, so it's a best of 3. And having seen them, I reckon most people out there will probably agree with them all. But unfortunately, it's me. You're going to have to persuade, so you will need to convince me that your pick deserves to go into room 101. So, round 1, and we're going to start with you, Gav. And like I said, I've tried to do them in order that you sent me your picks through, because it was easy, but they were pretty well matched. So, in your first pick, Gav, you've gone for clickbait websites. So I'm going to hand it over to you to explain exactly what you mean and why it needs to go into room 101.
So before I digress from this, and we'll have all been through this, right? I had it this week. I had somebody come up to me and went, "Did you see that such and such is saying that Wilson Isidor's signing for Everton? Did you see that such and such is saying Wilson Isidor's signed for Besiktas? Did you see such and such has said this?" And I just think, do none of these people actually look at where this news comes from and who's reporting it? Because I don't know. I don't know what it is, but that's what's happened. Basically, there's a whole section of the media that just feeds off football fans' need to have this constant dopium hit. Every single dopamine even. Get me words right.
That's a completely different drug.
Yeah.
You've just taken some dopium, I think.
Boom, boom.
The constant need people have to just be satiated by bollocks, like absolute shite, stuff that's clearly not true. I think half the time when I talk about football during a transfer window with people I know, you're fighting off arguments about things like this. Like someone will go, I've heard we're signing such and such. Where have you heard that? Well, I've seen it on Facebook. All right. But the source is these websites that just exist to talk complete shit. Some of the writers are actually Sunderland fans, so their job is to basically, I guess, trick their own supporters, the people who they're a part of, their own fan base. Like these websites just exist to generate clicks, to generate money, and it can actually sometimes be detrimental to the football clubs that they're reporting on. Like if, for instance, this has been quite a quiet transfer window for us, right? So it's been funny because there hasn't been a lot of rumours about players coming in. So it's maybe been less of a problem in January. But in the summer, I mean, Andy did that list for the website, and there was like 120, 130 different players who these websites had said Sunderland were in for. And it's just shit. It's just all that bollocks. And they just exist to leech from people, and I hate it. And I hate how much they trick people. And it gets to the point where people get angry and upset them when we don't sign players. Like there'll be a player linked with Sunderland, and then another club will buy that player. And our fans online get really angry about it, when the likelihood is we were probably never in for that player. It's just Sports Witness or Footy Twats or whoever it is that reports this stuff. Like, they just make it up. It's literally, they just make it up. They just draw names out of a hat. Have you seen that episode of South Park where it's like parodying Family Guy, and they've got fish in a tank that select the storylines from Family Guy? It almost feels that's how transfer windows go, and that's what these journalists do. They just have 2 fish in a tank picking balls for them. So it's like Brian and Buemo will sign in loan, and then the next ball has a fee on it for £5 million for Charlton Athletic. There we go. We'll run that story. And that's how stupid it is. You're laughing because you know it's true. And I bet people listening feel exactly the same. People who are clued up and don't just believe everything they read must be like me and see those websites and see the stories. And on face value, you go, bollocks. But the amount of people you know who see that and believe it and then go into work or text their mates and say, why are you seeing we're in for such and such? Or are you seeing such and such is going to such and such? And you just, it baffles me, and nobody wises up to it. And every single transfer window is the same. So, yes, anyways, can you tell I was a little bit annoyed about that one?
Yeah.
But, I'm consigning them to the bin.
Well, I'm trying to decide whether this is something new because the first thing that springs to mind, and I don't know if you can
I know what you're
remember.
going to say.
Go on then.
Club call.
Yeah, club
Yeah.
call. Because going back to that, and genuine question for you, actually, Johnny, can you? And I mean, if you're too young for this, then absolutely brilliant on your behalf. But did you ever use teletext?
I can't say that I was an avid user, but I was just about old enough to have grown up in an era where we were checking teletext when I was a smaller and much less mature child.
Yes.
Did you ever play Bamboozled? That's what I want to know.
No. We'd already graduated to the free games on the Sky box by the time I was let loose with a remote control.
What was the B game called again on Sky?
Beehive Bedlam.
That's the one. Yeah,
best day of my life. We had like a snow day or something off school, and we begged my mum and dad to let us. You had to spend like 99 pence or something. You could get like the power ups and that. What a day, man. Beehive Bedlam. That's not going in room 101.
But I would say the equivalent to, websites like you're describing, Gav, back in the day, because teletext was just kind of internet on the telly, really. You just used to read pages on the telly and in old style text and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, so and all of those, Club Call would advertise on there that you had to ring a premium number and it would give a headline. And it was like, I was looking at this. It was like 48 pence a minute in a day where, Mars bars were around 27 pence or something like that. And they were bigger than they are now, by the way, just for another whinge, throw another whinge in there.
Just while you're on the subject of chocolate, have you noticed Cadbury's have put all their bars up from 69p to £1?
Unbelievable.
And I mean, it's still
it's getting smaller
worse.
as well. Smaller as well.
Yeah.
But we're gonna have one of them we're gonna have a whole pod just talking about chocolate bars and how they used to be back in the day. But weirdly, you could listen to coverage of games over the phone as well. It would cost about 35 quid a game through Club Call to listen to games as well. But they used to have basically headlines were just nuts. I remember when I went to teletext and I used to go home for lunch from school, and I used to always check the Club Call things, and then you go in the afternoon and you talk to the lads. I remember in the summer of 1996 when we got promoted under Peter Reid, there was headlines linking us with Ariel Ortega, Karol Poborski, who after his scooped goal in Euro 96, he was linked with us, and Roberto Baggio. While we were still at Roker Park, there was some good stories actually, because there was some mistakes made with some of those headlines with Club Call as well. Apparently, there was a Club Call employee who misheard the top line involving the potential move of 3 players from a leading London club. And on teletext, the headline was 3 on the moon instead of 3 on the move. So loads of people called in, loads of curious fans called in. And eventually, people made a complaint that callers had been misled. And they ended up having to give people's money back because the people were ringing up to see what 3 on the moon meant. But Club Call was absolutely massive. I was reading as well that Club Call contributed as much money as the first division clubs got from Barclays for sponsoring the league.
Jesus.
It said by the end of the 1987-88 season, Club Call had received 12 million calls, each one costing the individual caller between 25 and 38 pence per minute.
So what you're saying is people have always been gullible.
Absolutely. But I suppose the point I'm kind of making is, like, is this not where the fun is in the transfer window?
Not for me, nah. The fun is in the reliable journalism. So when people like Fabrizio Romano, for instance, people kind of take what he says and think, well, fair enough, it must be close. Or, Keith Downey when it comes to North East News, David Ornstein, people like that, when they report on something, that's when I start to get excited. But when it's literally just some graduate sports journalism writer who's literally just graduated from uni, first job, working for a clickbait site on minimum wage, like just keen to get their foot in the door, and is being forced to write shit, basically. And they just make it up because the websites know if you put these words in your headline, fans of these clubs will click it and we will get money. That's literally all it is. It's not about good journalism. It's not about investigating the stories. It's not about having sources. It's not about it's not about reporting accurately. It's just about taking advantage of people. And that might sound like I'm being harsh to the writers, but literally, if you want a foot in the door in journalism, where else do you start? Normally, it's with these websites, with the apps and things like that, where they literally are the paying you a pittance to lie to people effectively. And I get why the writers do it. I have nothing against the writers because it's their job. They're being told to do it. Do you know what I mean? And if I was a graduate, just got my sports journalism degree, and I needed a job, I'd probably end up in a similar role. It's the actual websites that are the problem. It's the people dictating what they write, and I don't find it. I just find it irritating because the amount of people it misleads is ridiculous. Like there was one this week, Isidore Besiktas, and because the guy is a foreign journalist and he's got a blue tick on Twitter, everyone believes it. But when Andy did a really good feature during just after the summer window on our website, and people can dig this out. I might even post the link. So people, I do occasionally post it just to reiterate this point. But he done a really good piece where he basically, everyone who reported on something over the summer, he totaled up how many times they actually got it right versus how many times they got it wrong, and did like sort of like a league table of how much bullshit they spoke. And it's all the same people. It's all the same people who pop up. They'll be popping up now in January, just posting stuff. And because they've got a blue tick and because they have sports journalists in their bio, people believe what they put, and it ends up on every website and every social media channel. And then here we are. People are convinced that we're selling a player, and then you do wonder actually for the players themselves. Like there was one again this week about Josh Madja going to a team in France. Apparently his agent then through the media issued some comms to say that is a load of shit. He's not going to Paris. But that's having to be done because these websites just invent stories, and I just detest it. I absolutely detest it.
But where do you draw the line then? Because in some of these cases, some of these clubs might be interested in those players, and they might be like they might have sent a scout out, or they might be just looking at him. They might be slightly interested, and the headlines might be like, oh, they're about to make a move or something like that to get the clicks. But where do you draw the line? Because at times there might be some small, it might be a small element of truth in there somewhere, but they're obviously kind of bigging it up to be something bigger.
It depends who's reporting it. Like there are some journalists and some outlets where you can, like, I mean, the ones that immediately spring to mind are probably Alan Nixon, who does transfer stuff for The Sun. You've got Peter O'Rourke, who writes for Footy Insider, I think. So I think it's pretty well known that they've got contacts and, their contacts are agents mainly. So agents use writers like that occasionally just to get the name of the player out there, to put pressure on clubs, to up offers, or there's any number of reasons why they would do that. But they then start to become a bit of a mouthpiece for agents. So yeah, like Alan Nixon probably does get quite a lot of stories right, but he also reports things just to do favours for people, or he might just be getting used. Do you know what I mean? And because he's occasionally right, people then are more inclined to believe what he writes. And I'm not saying he's like intentionally misleading people. I think just sometimes they get used by the wrong people to put stories out there. That's another thing that's quite irritating about the window. But like, you can generally sniff it a mile off. If the story says, let me just think of one off the top of my head. I don't know. Christian Uche. This was one in the summer. So Christian Uche who's at Palace? Before we went there, every story was like, is wanted by West Ham, Everton, Sunderland, Wolves, Leeds, Palace. Soon as a story does that, you just know it's shit. You just know it's absolute bullshit. So yeah, I do just really get annoyed by it. I wish people had a better sense of smell for bullshit. I wish more people were just pointing out and going, nah, that's bollocks, because he wrote it, or because they're reporting it. Because then they would just do away with these websites. They'd be useless. They would just stop bothering people. But because people click on them and believe everything, they're never going away, are they? Yeah. They've become a really irritating part of transfer windows. That you only notice them between the months of May and September, and then January and February. And the rest of the year, they don't even seem to exist. But they just come to life during the transfer window and take the piss out of us.
Well, Johnny's nodding along there, which has got me slightly concerned because he's supposed to be disagreeing slightly. But I'll bring you in. Clickbait, websites, Johnny, do you click on them most days during the window?
Absolutely not. No, listen, I totally agree with the thrust of the argument. The only thing I would be tempted to say is, sounds to me like the complaints more with the gullible fools who believe them than the websites themselves, which, are we saying we need to put half of all football fans in the room? I mean, I'm with you if so. I am with you, but is that the original point?
No,
technicalities maybe.
Yeah, I know what you're trying to get at, but no. It's just let's do away with these websites. Have a verification process for who's allowed to report on transfer news. There needs to be some sort of transfer news, please.
Yeah, a big cull of all the graduate journalists.
Yeah.
Listen to Obi-Wan Kenobi there. Who's the bigger fool, the fool or the fool that follows them? But last one, Gav. As we're going back to Club Call a little bit, and the amount that people click on this and talk about it, is this not the crux of what fans want during the transfer window?
Some people do, yeah. Like I say, it's kind of the point I made right at the start. They get that, what did I say, dopamine hit from just clicking on these things. Like if you're bored at work and you're on your break or something and you're opening social media and you're just looking for something to brighten your day up, then maybe, you're just, wow, look, we're going to sign Neymar or whatever, you know what I mean? Like
Ariel Ortega.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying there's not an audience for it. That's the problem. There is an audience for it. But you can't get away from it. It's just everywhere you look. Like I reckon if I open news right now, I've got it in front of us, it'll just be wall to wall shite. Just scroll down the list, and because people who don't know, news now is an aggregator, so it sort of pulls together Sunderland stories from every website that covers off Sunderland, but it's just shit. There you go, here's one here, footballfancast.com. New name, Sunderland now plotting move to sign versatile wide player before Monday's deadline. How the fuck do Football Fancast know that? Right, so I'm going to click on it, so they've got me click. I'm just waiting for this page to load. Right? Sunderland have now, so the writer's called Tom Cunningham. Who is he? Does anybody know who Tom Cunningham is? Does Sunderland have contacts with this fella? Right?
He's setting all the meetings, man. He's Gazolfi's best pal.
Sunderland have now set their sights on signing a Serie A defender who could become their own version of Patrick Dorgu. Oh, okay. And this is the other thing as well. You open the story, right? And there's nothing about the transfer until you get to the bottom of the page because they want you to read all the other shit. So you stay on the page, right? I'm still scrolling. There's nothing. Who the fuck is this bloke? Right,
this was a video, man.
So this is another part of the problem, right? So he's reported. This is a clickbait website, and he's reporting a story from another clickbait website. They just feed off each other.
There's just layers and layers of bullshit all the way down, isn't there?
There is. And I mean, I'm sorry for this Tom Cunningham fella. I don't know who he is. I'm just picking on him because it's literally the first one that I've seen.
Well, I think we established that nobody knows who he is, Gav, not just you.
Yeah. But like, and by the way, that story. So this is the way it all works, and this is why it's shit. That is the top Sunderland story on News Now today.
Honestly, Gav, we're thinking about new ideas for pods, and I tell you what, just listening to you open clickbait shite should be a whole pod, and you describe on what you see.
just like I just detest it so much. Honest, I really do hate it.
The look of disgust on your face. Right. Anyway,
this isn't just Sunderland, by the way. There's just so many. Every club's got this problem. They only exist to annoy people like me.
Well, I think you've put a good case forward for that first pick, and we need to move on to Johnny's, because your first pick, Johnny, is on a similar theme, and there might be a little bit of overlap here, but you're looking at celebrity transfer journalists. So I'll hand it across to you.
Yeah, obviously the first name that will spring to everyone's mind is Fabrizio Romano, and he is most definitely squarely in the centre of the bullseye that I'm aiming at here. But the thing is, I caveat this by accepting that in the world of football being as big as it is, people who deliver the news people want to hear are going to have massive followings. I haven't got an issue with them getting to this level of fame or earning money, anything like that. My problem with it is it's absolutely killed secrecy in any transfer business for any club that's got any sort of amount of eyes on them. So you never, ever, 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 barring maybe one or two odd exceptions, you never get transfers where, you know, you turn on your phone and you say like, oh, bloody hell, we've just signed such and such. That's amazing, that. Or, oh, wow, I didn't expect him to move to Real Madrid, or, you know, anything like that. Just think back to last January, right? Enzo Lefebvre comes in. Imagine if we'd had no inkling that was going to happen before it did. And we just, one afternoon or whenever it was, we all just got a notification on our phones, or we started getting texts like, bloody hell, lads, we've just signed somebody from Roma here. And he's got, you know, we could sign him for 20 million quid in the summer. And, wow, this is incredible. No, instead, now we get 16,000 tweets in the 2 days leading up to the signing of, okay, he's reached verbal agreement. 2 hours later, they've still got a verbal agreement. 2 hours later than that, they've started drafting a written agreement. And now they've signed the written agreement. And now they've fucking filed the written agreement, and it's in the system. And, oh, now somebody's just updated it and fixed the typos. And, oh, now he's getting on the plane, and now he's having his in-flight friggin' drink service. We get it, lads. We want to know the transfers are happening. We don't need a live blog of when every time every player's having a shit on his plane. Okay? Sometimes it's okay to let us just guess for a bit. We don't need to be constantly fed everything. I'm calm again. But so my overriding issue with it, like I say, it's the lack of any possible secrecy. It's like the opposite of Gav's. Gav's is too many people are interested in too much all the time, and mine is they're giving us too much. So it's kind of two sides of the same coin, I guess.
I'll put 2 points across to you straight away. First one, has there ever been any secrecy when it comes to football transfers? And then the second part, a little bit like Gav, I'd say, you know, when that first tweet comes out and he's like, you know, it's happening, breaking news, is it not a case that time between that first tweet and the signing actually happens is a bit like Christmas Eve? You know, where something big's going to happen, and the build-up is as good as the thing actually happening sometimes. Yeah, you've got that anticipation. But if we didn't know about it and it was the club who broke it, would you not be like, oh, wow, that you didn't have any anticipation, you didn't have that fun during that build-up?
I think there's just something really, really impersonal about it all as well, because it's now aggregated through these central giant hubs like Fabrizio Romano, like a David Ornstein. Now, somebody like an Ornstein, to me personally, is much more palatable than a Romano, just in the way that he delivers his information and stuff. But, you know, these central large figures who are the ones that, obviously, again, there's going to be certain people who get the trust and the reputation, and they're going to be the ones who people go to with the big stories. But, like, it's different hearing it from, oh, well, Fabrizio's tweeted it and now it's happening, versus the local paper, the local journalist. You know, think about when, what was he called, man, with the parents' door, when Jermaine Defoe was going to re-sign for Sunderland, and you've got you've got lads running down to the academy and doing their own sleuthing to try and find stuff out. That's exciting. That to me is like, that's properly. Then the covering of the story is a story in itself. Whereas when it's all just, oh, well, we're just waiting for the next curated tweet to come out that confirms that, oh, you know, he's getting on the plane, and, oh, the plane's over the Atlantic Ocean now, and come on, lads. There's a happy medium, there's a fine line that I think was crossed quite quickly, quite a while ago now, and we're so far on the other side of that now, looking back. You know what I mean? There was a grain of something entertaining there that I think has long since been wrung completely dry in the pursuit of relentless content.
Could you not argue that Romano has given Sunderland fans so much pleasure during the summer by breaking these stories, and we've lapped it up?
Oh, absolutely, but that just is feeding into the truism that we all know, that every football fan's a massive hypocrite. You know, we're all shamelessly happy to admit that, yeah, if something benefits me, I like it, and as soon as it stops, let's get rid. You only need to think back to Sunderland fans' feelings on VAR in the playoff final to get all the proof you need of that particular fact. So, yeah, no, listen, I'm as guilty as anybody else. As Romano tweets, "Oh, Granit Xhaka's coming to Sunderland." Well, that's it. That's me for the next few days. That's all I'm thinking about and talking about. But that news would still break somehow, even if he didn't exist.
So is there a split? Would you say there's a split between the celebrity, transfer journalists in the way that they do it? Are there more professional ones than others who just say, this has happened, or this is going to happen in the next few hours, and don't update you until it's actually gone through? And there's others who will give you those minute by minute updates.
Absolutely, yeah. There is a difference. This is why I mentioned Ornstein as the sort of counter to Romano, because with Ornstein, you tend to get like one major tweet of, okay, this deal is it's officially signed, or like it's about to be announced. Here's the fee, here's the contract length, here's the wages, whatever. But with a Romano, and obviously he has spawned thousands upon thousands of copycats who all try and do the same thing. It's, the Club X admires player Y, and then they move from admiration to interest, and then it's a concrete interest, and then they're going to open initial talks, and then there's tentative agreements, and then there's a verbal agreement, then there's this. Come on, lads, we don't what are we doing here? What is the difference between a tentative agreement and an initial agreement? And what are we doing? It's essentially the same impact as the clickbait sites then, where you just flood the sort of information marketplace with loads of utter shit that's completely meaningless, that doesn't tell anybody anything, but it's conditioned. And I think this is why I think they're sort of two sides of the same coin, because it's this sort of coverage which conditions people to expect every single transfer should be spawning countless updates and countless pieces and articles and words, and you need updates. It's, every one of about 75 stages through the process. Well, that's just yet more gristle for the mill of these clickbait sites that are churning out all this nonsense, non-content. And it's all driven from these bloody powerful... They're essentially agents, aren't they, really? Somebody like a Romano, he's basically an agent, the way he hawks players around on his Twitter feed. And that's, the fish rots from the head, so chop it off.
Yeah, to be fair, some of them might work for the agents. But just to bring you in on a Gav, celebrity transfer journalist, because it overlaps a little bit with your clickbait websites one, doesn't it?
It does to a degree, but at least I can stomach Fabrizio Romano because he's actually accurate most of the time. It's the disinformation I don't like. Where with him, he's a bit irritating, and he he's not thick. So if there's a deal like what Johnny's on about, where he just reports, sometimes he actually just tweets the same thing reworded, and it's just for interactions on social media. But he's basically became quite valuable to football clubs because they all want PR. They all want they want the biggest journalist to report on them, so that everybody then floods to their channels and everybody's paying attention. So Sunderland have done this. We know for a fact that he speaks to Kieran Louis-Dreyfus because it's been alluded to more than once, particularly during the summer. So, Sunderland have done this. We want Fabrizio Romano to report on Sunderland, and it's probably not helping the really hard-working local journalists who, in the past, would have rang managers and just said, what's going on? Informally, they would have went out for a coffee with Peter Reid or Dennis Smith or whatever, and he would have probably gave them some stories. Do you know?
Or down where was it? Was it Romano's?
Aha, yes.
Hey.
Yeah. It's harmed the guy, really, the actual journalists who cover these clubs day to day. Romano doesn't care about Sunderland, but Sunderland would rather him from his account that has, what's he got? Hundreds of millions of Twitter followers. He's massive, isn't he?
Certainly gets hundreds of millions of interactions.
Yeah, he's got 26.8 million followers. That's ridiculous. So the clubs know what they're doing. They use him. They use him as much as he uses them, really. Yeah. But I'm sure with him there was a story, maybe a year or two ago, where he basically, somebody had published a report where basically he was offering clubs his services for money. So he was going to clubs and saying, pay me and I will run your stories. And
This is why I say he's basically a glorified agent in some ways.
Yeah. He's kind of exploited the market to a degree. Fair play to the bloke, like he's making a fortune from it, but he's not like, to me. He doesn't. He works for himself, doesn't he? He's not actually working for an outlet. Where you mentioned before, David Ornstein works for The Athletic, doesn't he? So when David Ornstein's reporting and writing, it's for his job, but he's doing it for his employer, right? Whereas he's just doing it for himself, I guess. So that's maybe why he does the repetitive stuff, the constantly, just rewording the same thing over and over again.
From a marketing point of view or whatever, he's an absolute genius. I just don't look at football through a marketing lens very often.
No, he's even got
appreciate it.
He's even got a catchphrase, hasn't he? So yeah, it's yeah. I'm not a fan of them per se, but I can stomach him, to be honest, Chris. Certainly not. I don't think about him, and I don't think about maybe David. Or I don't think is there really many like proper celebrity journalists other than him. There's quite, like Johnny says, there's quite a lot of
Alan Nixon as well.
Well, he writes for The Sun, doesn't he? So I'm on about somebody who just stands alone and does their own thing on social media like he does. There's a lot of copycats, but none of them have got the contacts he's got. It was that fella with a big trim in the summer, wasn't it? What was he called again? Sasha something?
Tavalieri, was that him?
Yeah, he must have some contacts in Belgium, so he brought the Talby story. But then he also tweeted a load of shite that was untrue. So you kind of like, but he is the kind of person you're talking about, Johnny. The sort of the people trying to be Romano, I guess, who never will be, because he's insurmountable now. When you look at his following, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, a little elbow thrown out by Gav there on Johnny's pick, but no, it's time to see what's going into Room 101 from round one. But before we do, we're going to take a quick break, so we'll be back very soon.
The world moves fast. Your workday, even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
This episode is brought to you by Credit Karma. When it comes to your money, Credit Karma keeps you ahead of the game. You can count on Credit Karma to keep up with your financial needs as they evolve, helping you monitor your progress and giving you personalized recommendations so you can make strides towards your goals. Make sure you're on the right track, no matter where you are on your financial journey. Intuit Credit Karma. Karma you can count on. Download today.
Año Nuevo. Los mismos Extra Value Meals en McDonald's. Ahora te puedes llevar 2 snack wraps y papitas y una bebida mediana por solo $8. Solo por tiempo limitado. Precios y participación pueden variar. Los precios pueden ser más altos en Hawaii, Alaska y California y con entrega.
And welcome back to How the podcast. And we're just about to find out what's going into Room 101 from the first picks. And to begin with, I'm very sorry, Johnny. But because this would include the likes of Fabrizio Romano, who gave us so much pleasure in the summer, that we'll remember for years to come. And he broke all of that, and we got so much joy from it that I don't think celebrity journalists or transfer journalists can go into Room 101, unfortunately. And Gav, unfortunately, mate, that split second as a kid that I thought Ariel Ortega or Roberto Baggio might be playing at Roker Park will always live with me. And I just think we'd lose too much of that fun from the whole transfer window. And maybe it can't be all that serious. So neither is going into Room 101, which is a disappointing start for the both of you. Exactly. So we'll go straight into round two. And we'll go back to Gav, who wants to throw demanding fans into Room 101. And I'll hand it over to you to explain.
Well, I think that the January window, in the main, exists for clubs who've had a shit summer, really. If you've done your job in the summer and got your squad in shape in the summer, you shouldn't really need to do anything in January. If you look if you look at the big business done already in this window, you've got, at the top of the table, you've got Man City, going out and getting Marquis and Antoine Semenyo to try and bridge that gap between them and Arsenal, because they haven't, by Man City standards, they haven't had a great season really. They've lost some games where you go, they shouldn't be losing there. And then at the bottom of the table, you've got, like, fair enough, it might keep them up, but West Ham spending 50 odd million on 2 strikers, or a team's panicking really, and that's what January is about. Now, the reason I say demanding fans is because of transfer windows, there are fans who almost expect that their team has to spend money and has to spend big. And I think if you take a step, I'll talk about Sunderland because obviously we're a Sunderland podcast and it's very relevant to this discussion. But in the summer, we bought 14 players. Is that right?
Yeah.
And undoubtedly, we had a brilliant summer. Other than Masuaku, really, you can't whinge about the business we did. Like, we had a really good summer. Virtually everybody has hit the ground running and made an impact. So, it's one thing going out and signing that many players. That is not normal. But 2, you've got to think, like, if you go out and sign 14 players at the spend we did, what was it, like 160 million or something like that, all in? Maybe give or take 5 million here or there, I don't know. But that affects your ability to recruit again. And on top of that, not only did we sign a lot of players, not only did we spend a lot of money, but we've also completely overachieved everyone's expectations. We're fighting in the top half of the league, or will be. With a good second half of the season, we could be playing in Europe next season. So, for all intents and purposes, we shouldn't need to now go out and spend 30 million on this player, 30 million on that player. Yet there are probably going to be, because I mean, my big prediction for the end of the window, by the time this goes out, I might be wrong. But my prediction is we're not going to buy anybody. Or if we do, it might be a free agent goalkeeper to replace Patterson in the squad, or a loan. And that's not a sign of being unambitious or anything. It's a sign we did our job in the summer. We aren't panicking yet. There will be, I'm sure, lots of Sunderland fans who will lament the fact we haven't gone out and spent 30 million, 20 million on this player that we probably don't need, if we're being brutally honest. Like, other than, I think if we're being really picky, we would love a right winger. We would love possibly another central midfielder just to add to that roster of players. If you're being super, super picky, maybe another defender. But, like, I'm on about, like, being seriously picky. Like, if the squad remains as it is for the rest of the season, we'll be absolutely fine. We'll win games. We'll do very well. And yet there will still be an appetite from our fans, or some of our fans, to spend. And come 3rd of February or whatever it is, after the transfer window's shut, people will be sat there going, why didn't we go out and get this? Why didn't we? And I just think that is a symptom of the transfer window. Unfortunately, because there are only 2 opportunities in a season to recruit players, it's tuned people into thinking, right, well, we've got to spend money now.
Yeah. Well, there's a recurring theme, because as we mentioned, Andrew's pick last time was, and I quote, gobshites at the match. And now you're trying to throw demanding fans in. But just a general question on it, because I suppose, where do we draw the line, Gav? Because you could confuse being demanding with being ambitious. Now, you said, you mentioned the word ambition in there, and we looked at comments from Kira Louis-Dreyfus. I think it was before the Everton game or the Arsenal game on Sky. I think it was the Everton game, where he said, if we're in a good position, we might spend big if the deals are right, and we'll try and push on to that next level. Now, you're saying we don't need them, which is absolutely fine, and I agree with you as well. But for what end? Because we don't need them to survive. But is that being demanding or ambitious if somebody said, why don't we spend that, 25, 30, if not more, £1 million on, let's say, an attacking player where maybe we've been weakest this season?
Well, like I say, if we're being picky, I would love us to go out and get another winger. But if that means the club have to pay 10 million more for a player they really like just to get that player in now, then I would be thinking twice about it, because it's a lot of money. It might affect our spend in the summer. And we're not desperate. So I I don't think as a general rule, spending money equals ambition. I think the best example I can think of this is Stuart Donald with Will Grigg in the January window, because he overpromised to fans and underdelivered. And because of that, and because of the pressure on getting Sunderland promoted, he did what he did to get Will Grigg. And it was undoubtedly for the worst, really. Like, at the time, it felt great. I got that dopamine hit. I was like, brilliant, we've signed Will Grigg. Like, buzzing minutes before the deadline, it's confirmed that he's had a bid accepted for him and all this. We all were. We were absolutely buzzing. Same with the Defoe one that Johnny mentioned earlier. Like, at the time, it felt like a really good idea. But we've got a football club full of people who think beyond short term. Say, what's the most important thing to do? If we've got a winger in mind right now, and I'm sure we probably have, who's the perfect fit. Probably think back to last January, right? You remember when Brighton wanted Watson from us, and it then came about that we wanted Simon Adingra. We didn't. For whatever reason, we didn't sign him because the deal didn't feel right at the time. We then waited till the summer to get him, but because it did feel right and it was the right moment to do it. I mean, whatever, maybe hasn't got off to the best of starts in the Sun and shirt. But the point is that we probably could have got a Dingra. If we went to Brighton and said he has another 5 million quid or whatever, they probably would have sold him. You know what I mean? But it wasn't the right thing for the football club, and that's what people have got to keep in mind, is that as much as there's no way Kirill and Christian Speakman and Reggie Slibreese don't think we need a right winger or we don't need some help in attack, but they're not going to risk our budget in the summer. They're not going to risk our ability to invest in the future just to give people what they want sooner. Because let's be honest, if we don't sign a right winger, we've still got plenty of options between now and the end of the season. So I get it. I do get it. I know why people. I want another winger. I want someone to. Ideally, I'd like us to bring in brilliant players all over the park. But sometimes them deals aren't on the table. And to be honest, if you look at the rate of the speed of just the way the dominoes have fallen in the transfer market in this month, it's been very, very slow. Very, very slow. It's not just Sunderland. Every single team seems to be impacted by just the lack of movement. And it's because there's no value in January. And that's why you get teams like West Ham spending fortunes on very average players. I mean, the one on the day recording, obviously, Strand Larson going to Palace. Wolves bought him for 28 million in the summer. He scored one goal, which was a penalty against Burnley. And it's going to cost Palace 50 million quid to sign him because they're panicking because they're going to lose Mateta. Mateta wants to go. They've got an unhappy player. They need to replace him. Who's out there? There's about 5 players available probably. Oh, shit, we better just pay it. Like, we aren't in that position because we've not put ourselves in that position. And I don't want that to be lost. I think people need to remember that if we don't get anywhere in this window. And hey, look, sometimes being patient pays off, because if you look in the summer, people wanted another striker, and on deadline day we get Brian Broby, and look how great he's been for us. And we got him at a very good price. Bertrand Traore cost for 2 million quid. He's been our best winger this season. Them deals probably wouldn't have been available to us earlier in the window. So sometimes you've just got to be patient and things line up. And if they don't, so what? You've got to acknowledge we've done a good job already. To be sat here with a squad which is only going to improve in the second half of the season is a testament to how good we did in the summer, and it's meant we don't have to do that in this January window.
Yeah, well, you threw the grenade in being the Will Grigg transfer, to be fair. But Johnny, just to get your take on demanding fans.
I sympathise. I do sympathise because it is annoying, But I also think this is essentially just a wider issue, because this isn't... The fans who complain about transfer windows are the same fans who you lose your first game in 2 months and they whinge. Or, there's a set of pictures put out from the latest training session and they don't see the favourite player on it, so they whinge. Or we win 2-0, but we missed a good chance and it should have been 3, so they whinge. There's just some fans, like some people, are just never happy. They're always going to find something to whinge about. And transfers is a very easy one because it's so public, obviously, because there's like an entire industry built up just around reporting on it. So you don't just get the facts of, Robbie's gone to Sunderland, you get the price and you get the contract details a lot of the time, and you get how the negotiations began. I mean, how many long reads have all of us as Sunderland fans read since the summer and gobbled them up because it's got stories of, well, Granit Xhaka saw his phone ring and it turned out to be Kirill Louis-Dreyfus and the Sunderland owner was talking to him. We're all reading it because we desperately want any tidbit that we can about our club. And the natural result of that is the people who were never happy, unsurprisingly, are not happy. So they find stuff to whinge. And, whether we sign anybody this window, whether we sign 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or more, you can guarantee there'll be somebody somewhere who goes, well, what have we spent that on him for? Or why have we only given him a 2-year contract? Or a loan deal for this fella? They're never happy. So I do sympathise, but yeah, is it a transfer window issue or is it just a football fan issue?
Ooh, proper elbow you've thrown out there before going into your second pick, Johnny, because you might get all statty or fill our heads with numbers now because you have a problem with how fees are reported. So you need to tell us more on that one.
Oh, this is so minor, but it really does me head in. And this ties into the wider debates that are always had around net spend and, Arsenal have spent 600 million quid, so of course they should win the league. And then everybody conveniently just ignores the fact that Man City already had £1 billion squad and then spent £500 million on it and signed Erling Haaland on 500 grand a week. But, he only cost 50 million, lads. That was a bargain. Bloody deal of the century, that Haaland for 50 million. And then the 2 million quid every month that you're paying him to play football for you, which I'm no expert, but I think that would add up to a pretty substantial transfer fee in and of itself by the end of his contract. Somebody can do the maths on that and correct us if I'm wrong, but I'm fairly confident 24 million quid a year is quite a lot of money. It's this obsession with the fee. And again, we're all guilty of it. We're all hypocrites because when we on this pod in the summer when we were talking about the signings, it was, can you believe we've only spent 9 million quid on Robin Roofs? It's like, well, have we only spent 9 million quid? Or have we also paid millions of pounds in like agents' fees and signing on fees and, loyalty bonuses and this and that? So everybody does it. Everybody's guilty of it. But it's so strange when everyone's so financially obsessed in football at the minute that we're happy to just operate with less than half a picture when it actually comes to transfers. I don't know why everyone allows this to be the norm.
Yeah, but I'll give you one of my biggest frustrations in football, and it has been for a long time, and it really bugs me, the undisclosed fee.
Oh, God, yeah.
Now, I hate this, but you're saying you've got a problem with the fees being reported as they are, but I find the undisclosed fee when you haven't got a fee. So do you think there's an obligation by football clubs to have to say we've spent this much, considering that they're buying people? There's an obligation in them to say we've spent this much, but how would you have those fees reported? Like what would be the figure, the initial figure, the figure it might get to after the end of his contract? What needs to be reported?
I don't think you need to necessarily mandate that every football club's totally transparent. You're right, that these are deals involving human beings and there's lots of reasons why you might want or not want certain bits of information to get out into the public domain. But my real contention is with the wider football and public and the way that we frame and discuss these sort of narratives around transfers and spends. Because, from the pettiest thing in the world, like somebody you'll see a tweet where somebody says, I can't believe Sunderland, managed to get so many points in the first half of the season. And there'll be some Newcastle fans or some Leeds fans or whoever underneath it like, oh, well, of course they should be doing well. I mean, they've spent 170 million quid. Like, we've only spent 50 million or whatever it is. Everyone who does this, and that goes from the pettiest right the way up to on Sky Sports or, wherever the major news sources that you watch or read, will have these articles of, here's the transfer spend from the Premier League for this window, or here's the transfer spend across Europe. And then you start drawing conclusions like, Chelsea have spent £1 billion on players. And it's just so devoid of any meaning and context. But people treat these figures as if they're gospel because, well, it's the transfer fees, and the transfer fees are the thing. But when you actually, pardon me, when you actually analyse what parts of spending are important, and anyone who's ever read Soccernomics will be able to tell you, it's wages that are the number one predictor for where you're going to finish in a league table. You know, I forget the exact percentage it is now, but it's above 80%, maybe even above 90% correlation. Excuse me, I'm allergic to bad transfer report. It's like, 90 odd percent correlation between how much money you spend on wages and where you finish in the league. Like, it is that direct and that simple. And yet, with all of the conversations around it, just ignore that. When that's the thing that matters, we should be talking about that.
Well, my reply would be to that. It had no correlation when we was paying Jack Rodwell 50 grand in the championship to where we finished in the league would be my reply to that. But just to throw in the mix of that, because you've also got agents' fees. Now, the thing is with that, you're talking about, should there be an extra line? When you're talking about, so-and-so's moved between this club and this club, the initial fee is this, and they've spent, and this much has gone to the agent. Should that be something that, what are you talking about when you say these should be reported? Should it be an itemized thing? Should it even matter what the fee is? Or should all transfers just be undisclosed?
You could make a very good argument that all transfers should be undisclosed. I think that would be quite boring, because we do, as much as I'm slagging all this off, we're all hypocrites and we all love to get involved in those debates. Like, you're chatting with your mates or whatever, like, oh, what a rubbish signing that was. I can't believe they spent that much money on him and he's only scored 2 goals or whatever. We all do it, but it's, again, like that conversation. Oh, what a bargain. Imagine someone sign a mystery striker for 15 million, in inverted commas, 15 million, right? And he turns up and he knocks in 25 goals. The footballer world's going to go, that's one of the best signings ever. That 15 million quid and he's got 25 goals. But then, maybe you're scratching under the surface of the deal and we actually also paid 20 million quid to his agent to actually facilitate the deal, or he's got a 15 million pound signing on bonus the day that he signs the contract. He's actually earning 150 grand a week, so he's by far and away our highest paid player. But it'll still be talked about as if it's a total bargain because, it was only 15 million, And there are countless examples you could point at where that are at sort of one end or the other of this extreme, where either, like, some transfers do get over-reported, where you'll get these disingenuous articles like, in total, Man United have spent 150 million quid on some shit player they've signed, like a Sancho or whoever, and they're including signing on bonus, wages, fees, everything all in one. It's that asymmetry between it that really winds me up, because it's so easy for all these partisan, idiots on social media, basically, who like to turn everything into a slinging match. It's more sticks to beat you with. Your club's not good at transfers. Look at this. Look at these fees. Look at these numbers. Piss off, man. At least if it was all accurate.
Well, enough for those who are listening. Unfortunately, you didn't get to enjoy, like I did, the fact that every time Johnny mentioned a transfer fee, he gave it the old bunny ears, which was absolutely fantastic through that argument. But just to give your say on this, Gav, what's your feelings on how transfer fees are reported?
It doesn't bother us. It doesn't bother us in the slightest. Not something I've ever been particularly angry about. I think accuracy of reporting on fees is important. So, you'll get one journalist saying 50 million, another saying 45, another saying 20. Like, someone's got to be right. So, I think the clubs, because they don't have to disclose the fees, kind of get away with what they report. And I agree that agent fees are a thing, because there is a report once a year, isn't it, about how much you need. Like, don't have to disclose this through FIFA. And there's a report like once a year where all the agent fees clubs have paid out are reported. But again, like, are there underhand ways to get around having to disclose exactly how much you're paying? Because I heard from a mate of mine who supports Newcastle that it hasn't been reported accurately just how much Newcastle paid in agent fees to sign Anthony Elanga. Apparently, it was a lot of money. A lot of money. I don't know whether that'll come out in the wash or not. And you're right, if that was another, I'm sure he said 20 million in agent fees on top of the 55 they've already paid for him, plus wages. That's a very expensive piece of business. It makes you look differently. I mean, they already think he's shite. How much more shite do they think he is if they knew exactly how much they paid for him? But by the by, I generally don't really mind so much. I don't get too annoyed by undisclosed fees and things like that.
Just to piggyback on the Elanga one, though, again, Eddie Howe in every press conference comes out whinges about PSR.
Yeah.
And the fees, the already inflated fees they've been chucking around for players are potentially even higher than they've even been made out to be. And yet they still want the footballing world to feel sorry for them and support them in trying to get PSR changed. So there's real world impacts from all this nonsense bollocks reporting, okay?
Well, Eddie Howe's frequently just... I heard him on the TV the other day saying they've been hamstrung by spending ability, and I'm like, you spent 200 on million at least, like of what we know, on players over the summer. And those were just the reported fees, and people kind of guesstimating and stuff. But it doesn't bother me too much, to be honest, Chris. Like, I'm not just saying that for the sake of this pod either. It just generally doesn't. Like, I don't know. Like for instance, Granit Xhaka, the reported fee was 20 million. And it rumbled on over the summer, didn't it? It was like, we were offering 10 million, but Bayer Leverkusen wanted 20, and then Kirill just paid it to get it done. Like, I didn't care because I know it's my club's money, but I kind of trust their ability to spend it for us, so I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
So I don't get too fussed about it.
Yeah, well, it's about time someone threw a John Fashanu style elbow in this, and there it was from Gav. But I think it's time to pick which one, if any, in round 2 goes into room 101. And apologies, Johnny, but the way that fees are reported doesn't go into room 101. I'm a bit like Gav. I can't say I really care. I mean, there's so much money in the game now that kind of, what does it matter? A bit like what Gav said there. I think we've gone beyond caring where all the money goes. There's probably 3 things in life we probably don't want to know how they're made: laws, sausages, and transferring a football player from one club to another. And I think if we knew more about that, I think our love for the game would probably die a little bit if we saw all of the details of every single transfer. And we'd stop eating sausages as well, I guess. But Gav, demanding fans will go into room 101 because of the pure fact that you mentioned the Will Grigg transfer. And I think I was sold at that point. As soon as you said it might have impacted that transfer, that was it. I was in. I was completely sold. So
foiled by the old emotional appeal.
Yeah, I mean, Johnny, he knows how to play the game. He mentioned Will Grigg. Basically, that's it. Straight into room 101. So Gav is going one up, going into the final round. So we'll go on to Gav's final pick, which is the timing of the transfer window closing. Gav,
it's absolutely ridiculous. Why does the transfer window in the summer in particular stay open when the games have already started? It's ridiculous. It's just absolute nonsense. There's no reason why there needs to be any transfer business done after that first game of the season, because it impacts on everything, like absolutely everything. We played games at the start of the season against teams who had players playing for them who knew they were probably going to be leaving. Who does that benefit, apart from the other team they're facing? I think it's an absolute joke, if I'm honest, and I still don't. I kind of get to a degree why it happens, but it's not for the right reasons. It's because there's money in it. Really, that's it, isn't it? The longer it's open, the more money can be made from it. But I hate the fact it goes into the season. I think the full focus once the season starts should be solely on the game. It shouldn't be on who your team are signing and who might be departing and all this stuff. I like look at that carry on. I mean, I actually weirdly sympathise with Newcastle fans a little bit, because in January, I know Johnny's pulling his face, but in January so Bournemouth sell Semenyo to Man City, who's already played for them in the Cup, but they've changed the rules so he can So basically, anybody can then also feature for another team.
It's
And then
wasn't it?
Well, it felt, but if that is just Club A versus Club B, it's not right, really, is it? It's not right. But I'm mainly thinking of the summer window with this. I think I can't think of a logical reason why the transfer window needs to be extended through August. If your season starts, it should be finished in there, and that should be the end of it. And to be honest, you could even extend on this point and do away with transfer windows altogether. Because honestly, like, what purpose do they really serve other than to help the teams with the money? Because that's what it is, really. When the season starts, if you've got a good player, like I don't know, West Ham maybe, like we played against West Ham at the start of the season, and if you remember when we played West Ham, there was so much speculation about Paquetá leaving, and he was crap against us. And then, soon as the transfer window shut, he scored that goal. I can't remember the play, and he's given it the big in front of the fans and all that. And it negatively affected them, and it's not their fault really that other teams want their best players. So I'm not a fan of transfer windows in general, but the fact that they bleed into your season starting, it really rubs me up the wrong way.
Now, see, unfortunately, the second part of your argument, you were speaking my language about transfer windows, because obviously back in the day, they used to, the only transfer window closed, and I'm pretty sure, I can't remember, but I'm sure it was the last Thursday of March or something ridiculous like that, or the 26th of March. I can't remember the exact date, what it used to be. But essentially, you're allowed to buy players all season. So if I put that to you, Gav, you're saying, let's just get rid of transfer windows so people can buy players during the season. So what does it matter that the transfer window goes a few games into the season?
Well, like I say, let's just say they did away with transfer windows and you could buy anyone whenever you want, right? And obviously there would be rules, competition rules, like cups. To me, if there was no transfer window, you shouldn't be allowed to sign cup-tied players and play them. Like, that's just stupid. But let's say there's no transfer window and, you can sign anybody at any point. Like that example I gave of Paquetá at West Ham, right? He could go at any time. So there's not then this pressure building towards the end of August where he's still in limbo. His agent pestering the club to try and get him out of there. He's having daily discussions with his manager that's impacting on the team and things like that. He's the example that springs to mind because that was the one from the summer that we came up against West Ham. It most definitely had an impact. I mean, you're seeing with West Ham now, aren't you? I think he's either gone or pretty much gone, and he's been bombed out the team, and all of a sudden West Ham are playing well. And you just, like, these are situations that transfer windows add to. And you think of, again, I'll go, not because I think it's going to win us brownie points, but I go back to that Will Grigg one. And
trying it again.
but the reason that happened was because we sold our best player, Josh Madger, and we had no replacement lined up, and we were under pressure to get the body through the door before the window shut. Now, if you don't have that pressure, and you don't have you don't have to sign players by a certain time at the end of January, then there's no panic, there's no rush. It's not negatively impacting upon the game. My main issue with this really is the way that it impacts results and can then have a knock-on down the season. Like, it's undoubtedly when good clubs have got good players, it impacts on them. I think, there was Mark Gay at Palace earlier in the season where, he all but set to leave, and then it falls through right at the end because of timing and paperwork and stuff like that. And then that player's got to go back to Palace and play for them, and fair enough to him. Like, he kept on going, didn't he? And he's a model professional and all that. But what a stupid scenario where he's playing for Palace while they're actively trying to sell him, or he's actively trying to get out the club. And then this mythical window shuts. And because they didn't have a bit of paperwork in by 11 o'clock, the deal doesn't happen. I just think it's all stupid. I think there's no need for it.
But again, one of my pet hates is actually clubs who do leave it until the last minute, because I never really get that. But is that not the argument though, Gav? Like, you're going back to a time when Sunderland had to react because they weren't run well as a club. They were run really badly by people who were reacting to things. You look at Sunderland now and you see how organised we are now. And actually, there's a there's not much of an impact because that transfer window's closing, because we are so organised and we've got our plans and we've got players in place. We've got people out there. We've almost got our plans ready. So if anything happens, we can react without panic because we know what we're doing. Does it matter when things close or open or anything like that? Because if you're organised, does it all just not work well regardless?
Well, no, it does matter when it opens and closes, even when you're organised. I think what you're seeing now is Sunderland have kind of perfected our situation within the scenario we've got to exist within. Like, there are transfer windows, so we went out in the summer and got our business done very early because we knew that was the best time to do it. I just think, what is the argument for a transfer window? Like, why do we need one? What is the argument for having one? Like, what is the point?
I'm going off the top of my head now, but I'm pretty sure it came out of football being allowed to still kind of transfer people, because there was, going around the Bosman, there was a lot of court cases to say, how does football get around this? How is football allowed to do it? And I'm sure it came into it where there was actually a rule brought in, and that's where the windows came from. But I might be completely wrong with that. But I don't know whether you're reading up on it, Gav, or not. But
I'm not. But I don't understand the point in them, really. Like, what is somebody can write in or let us know. Like, what is the point?
But there might be the other thing where it's that thing as well. It's almost like the January sales. It's almost like to keep that merry-go-round of money being spent within the game.
But
it needs that impetus, doesn't it?
Yeah, but like, we know, especially further down the ladder, right? AFL clubs, non-league clubs, they rely a lot on player sales to generate income and keep moving forward and stuff. And we know that all football clubs over the summer, they suffer from not being able to put on games of football and create revenue and things like that. And let's just say, I don't know, Morecambe have a really talented young player who, clubs like Sunderland might want to put in their academy, and it could make them a bit of money. Why have we got to wait until the summer or January to be able to do that? I don't understand it. I think for the betterment of the game, you should just, like anything, you should be able to go into a shop and pick something up and pay for it. Why can't football act like that? What are they effectively giving in to people taking the piss by saying, right, we need to regulate this tightly and we need to have because people have taken the piss in the past? There are a lot of long-established laws and rules in football which don't make much sense to me, like 3 o'clock kickoffs and transfer windows. Like, why do we need them? I just, for me, really, for the health of the game, any way in which clubs can generate income and reinvest that into their clubs and things like that should never be off the table. I know non-league teams can transfer players, but what about League 2 teams and League 1 teams who don't have rich backers and rely on player trading or just trading amongst themselves to keep the wheels turning? Like, that ability being off the table to me doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And I think, I don't think it's coming anytime soon, but the only people who seem, this is kind of, again, an overarching point of nearly everything we've discussed today, but the only people who seem to benefit are clickbait websites, celebrity journalists, agents. You know what I mean? They're the people who come into play in a transfer window. Why do we need them?
Yep. Well, just doing some quick reading, it said the window was introduced in response to negotiations with the European Commission. Said the system had been used in many European leagues before being brought into compulsory effect by FIFA during the 2002-2003 season. The reasons were being competitive integrity. So by closing the market during the season, teams couldn't buy new players just before a crucial match or to replace injured players.
They can't say that bullshit because they can. The window stays open all the way through August and is open for a full month during the season in January.
But it was just, let's just say, someone buying a player before a final or a semi-final or something like that during the season.
Well, Semenyo signing for Man City just before a massive cup game. What's the difference, really? I'm being, seriously, I think there should be two schools of thought here. Either there's no transfer window, or the transfer window shuts before the season starts and doesn't reopen. which benefits nobody for me. But they're the only two. Like, if you're thinking about this reasonable and logically, I don't understand why you need one, really.
Well, like I said, you're speaking my language with that, but your actual argument was about when it shuts, rather than
yeah. Well, the come hand in hand to me. Like, when it shuts, it kind of what you've just said there. The same for the competitive integrity of leagues like the Premier League or the Spanish league or whatever league it is, that they must shut before important games, or other games in August not important. Other games like we've just had this week, Champions League games which determined who went through and who didn't, who finished in the playoffs, who didn't. Manchester City went out and spent an absolute fortune on 2 players, and that might have made. I mean, it didn't make a difference in the end. But my example being is that these teams have had the ability to recruit early in the window before big games. So that the wording of some of these things probably hasn't aged very well, and I think we are still beholden to laws like this, like the 3 o'clock blackout in the Premier League. We're still beholden to rules that don't make any sense in 2026.
See, Johnny, Gav's playing the game. He knows how to tug at my hamstrings with the 3 o'clock blackout and the getting rid of transfer windows. But anyway, we'll move on to your final pick, Johnny, because you need this one to have a chance to tie. And you've gone for, very specifically, Sky Sports' deadline day coverage. So I'll hand it over to you to explain why.
Yeah, I'm going to throw a 1-2 punch here. So first, I'm going to go after Gav and just say we wouldn't have Traore and Robbie if the transfer window shut before the season started, would we? And I quite like them. So
no, but again, just to respond to that, right? If there was a world in which the window shut at the start of August, we probably would sign them at the start of August. You're operating within the rules that you have to operate in. Like,
yeah, it was.
If
it
the
was
rules
just
were slightly different, then
it was just an excuse for a cheap dig, to be honest. But yeah, I think the deadline day coverage, and I've named Sky specifically because, and you've already actually mentioned it, mainly because of the famous dildo incident, right? That was brilliant TV. Everybody who watched that, by and large, thought that is hilarious. The clip got shared around everywhere for a reason. And okay, look, I don't want all football coverage to be, gratuitous sexual objects being flung around screens, I don't know if that's necessarily what we need. But the reporters being on the ground at the clubs, that was a big thing. There was a lot of effort made to actually, genuinely cover these clubs, and there was a little bit of interaction with fans, and there was stuff happening on the ground in a lot of these. I mean, I remember, I think it was when Arsenal signed Mesut Ozil from Real Madrid. There was great scenes of, loads of fans congregating and stuff happening outside the ground, and that was all broadcast on Sky. And, it used to have personality, a bit of character to it, where obviously, if you were tuning in, you're watching it because you want to see what's happening on deadline day, but also partly because there was this extra sort of window dressing around it to, just to make it feel like a bit of fun, because football at the end of the day is, we're supposed to enjoy this. I know we all get indoctrinated into supporting Sunderland as young children by and large, but the sport as a whole, we like it. We want to enjoy it. Whereas now, you turn on Sky on deadline day and you've just got a rotating cast of presenters who are sat there reading out the stories that are on screen that you could just read yourself anyway. And Fabrizio Romano's probably tweeted them 2 hours before anyway, or David Ornstein or somebody, or it's been on your club's forum, or your local journalist's been tweeting it. It's just it's so crap now, and it used to be really quite good. It makes me quite sad. It feels like this is one of my first, I'm turning into my dad type things. I'm like, back in the day, the coverage used to be good, Back when they were flinging dildos in people's ears, that was when we had our stuff together. But yeah, now and again, this kind of chains onto some of the other points we've made, but it feels very much a victim of this turning football into a content machine. Deadline day now is a perfect excuse for all of these clickbait sites and journalists and agents and everybody else to just churn as much stuff out as they possibly can and just throw it all onto the yellow ticker on Sky Sports, because that's what the people want. So let's get some more clickbait and let's invent some more rumors and, it's all turned into a sterilized nightmare.
Yeah. Says us who's squeezing a transfer special room 101 out of the transfer window.
But I think was it even were the three of us on the deadline day pod that we did?
Yeah, probably. But Johnny, I mean, it's interesting actually because you sent this through and you said the deadline day coverage, and it's interesting to hear you describe it because what you're not saying that you just dislike it across the board. You want to go back to those crazy days where they had a reporter at every training ground and all that sort of stuff. Do you think we just said there that actually the transfer window is just over 20 years old and we're going back probably 10, 15 years for that sort of coverage? Do you think it's because now that everyone's kind of lost interest in the window because it was a new thing back then?
Well, it's probably partly that because obviously there's a novelty factor to anything when it gets brought in for the first time. That's understandable. But I do think that a lot of the enthusiasm's probably draining away from it because it's so commodified, essentially, and commercialized. Like, it is now, it's essentially just a game of efficiency, like who can most efficiently, with the lowest amount of effort, generate the largest possible amount of output, of stories, of links, of, medicals and fees and this and that and the other. And so there isn't really any room for the coverage, or there's no room in the coverage for, to sort of stop and take a breath and, let's, okay, that's slightly overgeneralized because we do it on this podcast, right? Where you sort of stop and you take them in a bit and you maybe pick out a couple of stories and you discuss them and, what does that mean? But on the sort of, again, to use the bunny ears, on the proper coverage, on the telly or whatever, or on the radio or, on the websites of the big, Sky Sports and whoever else, wherever you want to get your news media from, other sources are available. But that's where a lot of the soul's kind of gone from it, as much as you can have soul in a corporate, entity. But that's, that used to have a little bit of whimsy, a little bit of fun, a little bit of just, I think there was an acknowledgement from everybody involved that it is all a bit silly and it's a bit panto, really, like transfer windows and deadline days. And, we take it all very seriously for what it really is. But now it is that serious because you've got players going for 100 million quid and you've got them earning £300,000 a week. And, there are clubs that are getting points deductions, going out of business, going into administration, at least in large parts based on like how the transfer dealings go. And so it's all gotten a bit dry and a bit, just a bit sad to watch. You watch it and you just like, who sat there on deadline day watching the whole thing? Because there's no entertainment anymore. You just sat watching a spreadsheet.
So I think Johnny's agreeing with me, Chris, isn't he? He just wants to do away with it all.
Hey, cheeky boy. No. I said I want to go back to... I can't keep repeating the ear incident. We'll probably get kicked off Spotify, but I want to go back to that. And for that to happen, there has to be a window.
Well, you want to go back. You want to go back to a time where when I were a lad, put purple dildos in people's ears on deadline day.
Yeah,
I think I actually just want to be 14 again.
You grew up in Roker as well, did you? Like I did. That was a normal Friday night.
It just had nothing to do with transfers back in the day. But no, it's just just to round off my response there. It's not that I think deadline day as a whole is a bad thing and the coverage of deadline day is bad. I think how deadline day is covered now is the problem. It can be covered well. It just isn't right now.
Yeah, well, you just need an infinite supply of sex toys, basically, at training ground car parks across the country. But Gav, I'll give you last say on what Johnny said, because look, there was a time when everyone loved it. Everyone tuned in because it was like an entertainment show, wasn't it? I remember, was it Odom Wingy in the car park who was rocking up to one club and they weren't going to sign him and all that sort of stuff. And you always had Harry Redknapp hanging out of his car windows, I've already said. And it was almost like a, transfer window tradition, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I actually think what we're probably talking about here is maybe one or two windows where they were actually exciting, and we're just remembering that and thinking that it used to always be that way. They actually did away.
He's good.
They did away with all the journalists standing outside the training grounds and that with fans, mainly because of that dildo incident, to be honest, and like just people popping up in the background and interrupting live TV. But they also did it because how often did it used to be like Keith Downey was stood outside of the stage, out the Academy Light, and just going, "There's nothing happening.
No, no,
There's nothing happening." So I think the coverage has changed because transfer windows aren't always exciting. Like the summer just gone, I think was a lot more interesting than it has been in years, because you had the whole Mark Gay thing. For us as Sunderland fans, there was the Brobby deal, the Traore deal, Hertruda deal. But it did feel like a bit of an anomaly. Like normally they are pretty boring and nothing happens. I remember Andy Carroll and Stuart Downing signing for Liverpool and that being quite a big deadline day in January. But like, I honestly think that they've just been few and far between. Maybe an era where maybe when we were like sort of growing up-ish, Johnny, and you used to get Sky Sports News on your Freeview box in your bedroom, so you could actually watch it as a young person in your bedroom and stay up like late all night and watch the coverage of it and stuff. I don't know. I don't think it happened as often as we maybe think it did. If you actually look back, I think there was the whole. I can remember that one with the purple dildo and all that, and it was just a mad night. There was stuff kicking off everywhere, and like I don't think that used to happen actually as much as we think.
Yeah.
But just you said it doesn't happen anymore, but then you mentioned how this summer actually really was a good one. But all the coverage was shit, and
it was better.
I
it
win.
was better. It was better than it has been, but still, what was the biggest story? Really, Gay's transfer falling through at Liverpool. There wasn't like a
he's
big
slippery. This lad.
There wasn't like a big raft of massive deals going through and drama and tension. It was all Mark. If I remember rightly, it was just Mark Gay to Liverpool falling through. That was it, really. Otherwise, it was a bit of a non-event. But it was still a little bit more active than it has been. Generally, the window, the deadline days and stuff are more like they are like what this one's probably going to be like, where nobody's really expecting anyone big to move players around. The big deals have already happened. Semenyo and Gay to Man City. Who else is going out and spending big money in this window? It's probably going to be nobody.
Yeah. Well, I think you both put your arguments across, and Gav's done his very best to kill Johnny's argument. But it's time to pick for the final round, and I think I'm sorry, Gav, but if you'd said get rid of the window, I would have been sold. But I think clubs just need to get organised, and the window shutting late being a problem is for clubs who just aren't run very well for me. So that's not going into room 101. And Johnny, we're talking about tugging at the heartstrings, and you want to go back to when reporters were getting dildos in the ear. And how can I not put the loss of that into room 101? So the current coverage of the transfer window on Sky does go into room 101.
Scraped in with a technicality and a sex toy. Get in.
That's it. He knows the way in. And we want to
all right, Bomber.
And we want to bring back, we do want to bring back the absolute chaos that used to be the transfer window in training ground car parks all across the country. So it remains a tie after the best of three. Well done, gentlemen. Good fun as always. Just leaves me to say, thank you very much, Gav.
Thank you, mate. Well, actually, no, not thank you, because you've just fucked us over. But it was a pleasure.
You weren't happy with that, but cheers, Johnny. You've got a big smile on your face.
All right, cheers. Whether it was a sympathy inclusion or not, I'm going to take the point and run.
You played the game in the end, mate. You got the big guns out. Not literally, but you know what I mean. But anyway, before we get into trouble, we should say thanks again, everyone, for listening. Look, we'll have loads more in the build up to the transfer window closing, hopefully, because Gav's been on alert, haven't you, Gav? All week you've been waiting for some deals if they were going to drop, and we were going to get in touch with people.
Yeah, there's been no to really talk about, so we'll see what happens. But yes, that is our promise to the listeners, that if something does happen, we will bring you all the coverage here at How We the Podcast. But I said to you the other week, Johnny, I thought we were going to do loads of news updates as we did in the summer, but it's been a bit of a non-event.
Yeah, absolutely. But then again, we've got a whole weekend to go before the football starts, which is, of course, on Monday against Burnley, so we'll have all the build-up to that. So look out for all of that on the Roker Report website and How We're the Podcast, of course. But from us, it's bye for now.